Hey everybody, before you watch the video, click subscribe. Would you please, pretty please? It would help us at Soul Boom so much. Click subscribe. You talk a lot about, I mentioned your book. You talk a lot about consciousness. How can a deeper awareness of one's consciousness positively impact someone's life of this random person in Dubuque that we're talking about?
First of all, become aware that awareness does not reside in the intellect. Understanding, problem solving can exist within the intellect, but the intellect is like the tiniest fraction of what my consciousness actually is. And we're stuck in this. It's like a sickness of our society that as I think, so I am, as I feel, so life is. And if I'm going to have a different experience of life, I need to do something out here in order to change the way thinking is happening in here. Nothing could be further from the truth. We're meant to know ourselves in a tactile way. We're meant to feel ourselves as a process of living rather than as a series of problems to be solved. When I look at myself through the lens of the intellect, all I see are problems. It's a problem-solving tool. And how many times have you had this experience? If I just get that job, I'll be okay.
Yep.
And I get the job, it's like, oh, yeah, but I need more money than that. But we need this. It's always the goalposts keep moving because it's not about that. So become aware that awareness is not a problem to be solved itself, nor is it a question to be answered. It's a question to be lived with. We were just talking about Aldous Huxley and his book, The Divine Within. And he talks in there about having an experience of, he was listening to some friend on the beach who was talking about something that was boring Aldous. And he looked at the film of sand that had gathered on his hand, and suddenly he realized that each of the little grains of sand were these perfect geometrical shapes, and each of them had an iridescence to them, and these rays of light were bouncing back and forth and across these different grains of sand. And he was having the experience that beauty exists in everything if I'm looking for beauty. It doesn't have to be something necessarily beautiful, but I must be engaged in the world in order to discover beauty in the world. And I must do what I personally can do to recognize that my experience of myself and my experience of the world resides solely within my consciousness rather than within the occurrences of the world.
What about anxiety?
Well, for an extended period of time, I was in anxiety all the time. And one of the biggest causes of anxiety that I know for myself is my resistance to feeling the way it feels to be here. It's really uncomfortable to be in a body. It really, it's not painful, but it's extremely uncomfortable. And it's really uncomfortable to see myself as someone who carries rage or anger or shame or fear, all these so-called dark emotions or negative emotions.
And someone who wants approval and wants to be loved and wants status and these other kind of more ineffable, darker needs of the ego.
Yes.
Please correct me if I'm
saying
it.
No, you're absolutely right.
No, because again,
I would quibble with both of ours use of darker.
Okay.
In that paradigm tells me this part of me is okay and this part isn't, and I have to get rid of this part and grow this part. As long as I never accept the dark part, I will never be able to live through the light part or the good part, because I'll be fighting this and acting as if I don't have it. But if I recognize where these feelings come from, that they are a natural outgrowth of living in a world where separation and lack of love is my experience, but togetherness and love is my deepest desire. I had lots of psychological answers for a lot of years and was never able to get past my anxiety or get past my deep not core, but deep belief that I was unworthy of life, let alone happiness. There must be a spiritual solution. There must be an awakening to the idea that there's so much more than what I'm seeing.
The Soul Boom Podcast. Subscribe now on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever else you get your stupid podcasts.